If you are a senior living in the United Kingdom and you have been watching the property market with a sense of hopelessness, wondering how on earth anyone is supposed to navigate these turbulent waters during their retirement years, then I need you to pay very close attention to what I am about to share with you today, because this information could genuinely change your circumstances in ways you might not have thought possible. We all know that making ends meet during retirement has become increasingly difficult across Britain, and the housing situation seems to add another layer of stress to an already challenging time of life. Every single day, we see headlines screaming about record house prices and unaffordable housing costs, and it would be easy to simply give up hope and assume that nothing good could possibly come from this market. But here is something absolutely remarkable that almost nobody is talking about right now. And I believe it is especially important for seniors and their families to understand this crucial development. First-time buyers, including those helping their grandchildren, or even seniors looking to downsize or make strategic property moves, are actually in their strongest position in over a decade. I know that sounds almost unbelievable when you consider all the negative news we are bombarded with constantly, but the data is sitting right there in plain sight, and it is being completely drowned out by all the noise about record prices and market chaos. Now, before we go any further, if you are a senior who wants to stay informed about these property market shifts and truly understand what is happening with UK housing and the economy in a way that actually makes sense for people in your situation, I would be incredibly grateful if you would take just a moment to subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. We work very hard to cut through all the confusing noise and bring you the real story behind the headlines in language that is straightforward and easy to understand. Your subscription helps us continue producing this content specifically for the senior community across Britain, and it means the world to us when you join our growing family of informed viewers. So let us dig into exactly why this particular moment in time could represent a genuine opportunity that we have not seen since before the financial crisis shook everything up back in 2008. The mortgage market has undergone a remarkable transformation over recent months, and this change has somehow flown completely under the radar of most mainstream news coverage. Interest rates have been dropping consistently and steadily, and we are now witnessing mortgage deals that seemed utterly impossible just 12 months ago. The major lenders across Britain are competing aggressively for business, particularly when it comes to first-time buyers and those looking to make sensible property moves. This fierce competition between banks and building societies is driving rates down to levels that are genuinely surprising even the most experienced financial analysts in the industry. Some fixed-rate mortgage deals are now coming in well below 4%, which might not sound particularly revolutionary at first hearing until you cast your mind back to late 2023 when rates were pushing uncomfortably past 6%. That difference is not merely academic or theoretical, it translates into hundreds of pounds saved every single month on a typical mortgage, and for seniors on fixed incomes or those helping family members get onto the property ladder, this represents a fundamental shift in what becomes achievable. The Bank of England base rate cuts have filtered through to the high street lenders far more quickly than anyone in the industry predicted, and more cuts are widely expected throughout the remainder of this year and into next year as well. What this means in real practical terms that you can actually feel in your pocket is that monthly repayments on a £200,000 mortgage could be approximately £300 less than they would have been just 18 months ago. For anyone living on a pension or carefully managing retirement savings, that is not a small saving by any stretch of the imagination. That is genuinely the difference between being able to afford a property and being completely priced out of the market entirely. But there is considerably more to this story than just interest rates coming down. Lending criteria have loosened in ways that would have been absolutely unthinkable just a few years back, when banks were being extremely cautious and conservative with their money. Banks and building societies are now offering income multiples that push boundaries we simply have not seen in well over a decade of property market observation. Where 4.5 times your annual salary used to be considered the absolute ceiling for borrowing, some lenders are now prepared to go to 5 or even 5.5 times for borrowers who can demonstrate strong credit profiles and stable financial situations. That represents a massive shift in what becomes possible. For someone earning £40,000 a year, that is the difference between being able to borrow £180,000 versus £220,000. The entire market you can realistically access changes completely with that additional borrowing power at your disposal. Even more interesting and relevant for many families is how lenders are now treating additional income sources in their affordability calculations. Bonuses, overtime payments, pension income, and even side hustles are being considered far more favourably than they have been in many years. The financial crisis made banks incredibly nervous and conservative, and that extreme caution lingered in the industry for well over a decade afterwards. Now, with confidence gradually returning and competition heating up between lenders desperate for business, those old restrictions are being carefully reassessed and relaxed. Lenders genuinely want your business these days, and they are finding creative and flexible ways to say yes to applications rather than automatically defaulting to no as they did for so many years. First-time buyers with decent credit scores and stable employment situations are discovering that they can borrow significantly more than they ever thought would be possible, and this is opening doors that seemed permanently closed. Then there is the deposit situation, which has completely changed the game in favour of buyers. 95% mortgages are back on the market, and importantly, they are not the risky, problematic products they were sometimes portrayed as in previous years. These are legitimate offerings from major high street lenders, backed by government guarantee schemes that protect both the lender and the borrower in sensible ways. What this means in practical terms is that you can purchase a property worth £250,000 with just £12,500 as a deposit. For people who have been desperately trying to save while simultaneously paying rent, or for grandparents trying to help their grandchildren get started in life, that is suddenly a realistic target rather than an impossible dream that keeps slipping further away. The gap between paying rent and saving for a deposit has been one of the biggest and most frustrating barriers for first-time buyers across Britain. Rent consumes so much monthly income that building up a deposit of £20,000 or £30,000 becomes a multi-year struggle that can feel absolutely endless. Cutting that requirement in half, or even more fundamentally, changes the entire timeline. You are looking at perhaps 1 or 2 years of focused, dedicated saving, rather than 5 or 10 years of grinding effort while watching prices climb ever higher. Even better news is that these 95% mortgage deals are not coming with the punishing higher interest rates they used to carry in previous market conditions. The rates on offer are genuinely competitive, sometimes only 0.5% higher than products that require much larger deposits. The penalty for having a smaller deposit has shrunk dramatically. Regional assistance programs and builder incentives are adding yet another layer of support that many people are completely unaware of. Property developers across Britain are currently offering deposit contributions, sometimes as much as 5% of the total property value, simply to get sales moving along in their developments. Combine that generous contribution with a 95% mortgage, and you are potentially looking at purchasing a property with next to nothing required up front from your own pocket. I know that sounds almost too good to be true, but this is genuinely happening right now in developments across the country. It requires some research and patience to find these opportunities, but they absolutely exist for those willing to look carefully. Property price growth has also dramatically slowed down from the frantic pace we witnessed in previous years, and in some areas it has completely stalled or even reversed slightly. While the headlines continue to focus obsessively on record absolute prices, the actual rate of increase has dropped to almost nothing in many regions. Some areas are even seeing slight declines in values, which creates breathing space for buyers who felt permanently locked out. Instead of desperately chasing a market that was running away faster than anyone could save, adding tens of thousands to property prices every single year, buyers now have time to get their finances properly in order and make their move when they are truly ready. House prices rising at just 1 or 2% annually versus the 10 or 15% we saw during the craziest periods makes an enormous psychological and practical difference to everyone trying to enter the market. That slower growth means your savings are not being devalued as quickly as you accumulate them. If you are saving £2,000 every month toward a deposit, you are no longer watching helplessly as the target moves away from you faster than you can possibly reach it. The market has genuinely stabilised. Sellers are being far more realistic about what their properties are actually worth. The days of properties going for £20,000 or £30,000 over the asking price within just hours of being listed are gone in most places across Britain. Buyers now have negotiating power again, and that is a fundamental shift in the dynamic that has been missing for years. You can take your time, get proper surveys done without being rushed, negotiate sensibly on price, and even ask for fixtures and fittings to be included in the sale. The desperation and panic have left the market. Multiple offer scenarios do still occasionally happen for exceptional properties in prime locations, that is true. But for the average 3-bedroom semi-detached house in a decent area, you are looking at a balanced market where a fair and reasonable offer will be seriously considered by most sellers. They know that if they reject a reasonable bid, they might not receive another offer for months. That gives you leverage as a buyer that you simply have not had in many years. Government support schemes remain firmly in place, though they are not talked about nearly as much as they should be in the media. The mortgage guarantee scheme continues to underpin those 95% mortgages, making them viable for cautious lenders and accessible for ordinary buyers. Shared ownership programs are available right across the country, letting you purchase a percentage of a property and pay rent on the remainder, with the ability to increase your stake gradually over time as your circumstances improve. For people living in areas where prices remain extremely high, particularly around London and throughout the southeast, shared ownership can genuinely be the only realistic route onto the property ladder. You might start by buying 25 or 30% of a property, which requires a much smaller mortgage and deposit, then gradually buy more shares as your income increases or you manage to save additional money over time. Lifetime individual savings accounts offer a 25% government bonus on savings up to £4,000 per year, which is essentially free money from the government if you are saving for a first home. That equates to £1,000 every single year in bonus payments that goes directly towards building your deposit. Over 4 years, that is £4,000 that you did not have to earn or save yourself through your own efforts. First-time buyer stamp duty relief means you pay absolutely no stamp duty on properties up to £300,000, and reduced rates apply on properties up to £500,000. That saving alone can be £5,000 or even £10,000 depending on the property price, money that stays firmly in your pocket or can go toward furnishing and decorating your new home. These various schemes can all stack together in powerful ways. You can use your lifetime ISA savings, boosted by those generous government bonuses, toward a deposit on a 95% mortgage that is backed by the mortgage guarantee scheme, to purchase a property where you pay no stamp duty whatsoever. Every single element reduces the barrier to entry and makes the impossible suddenly feel achievable. Rental costs across Britain have now reached levels where the monthly payment on a mortgage is often actually lower than the rent for an equivalent property. This is the calculation that is tipping more and more people toward buying right now, even those who had given up hope. If you are currently paying £1,300 a month for a 2-bedroom flat and you could instead pay £1,100 for a mortgage on a similar property, the decision becomes blindingly obvious when you think it through carefully. You would be building real equity and ownership in an asset instead of funding someone else's mortgage payments and retirement. Every single payment increases your stake in something tangible rather than simply disappearing forever into a landlord's bank account. The rent versus buy calculation has not favoured buyers this strongly in approximately a decade. Rising rental costs, driven by chronic supply shortages and increased expenses for landlords, have pushed monthly rents to truly eye-watering levels across most of Britain. Meanwhile, falling mortgage rates have simultaneously brought monthly repayments down considerably. Those two trend lines have now crossed in a way that fundamentally changes the mathematics for anyone trying to decide between renting and buying. Yes, buying does come with additional costs that renters do not face directly, including maintenance responsibilities, insurance requirements, and potential service charges for certain properties. But when the core monthly payment is genuinely lower than rent, those extras become manageable considerations rather than absolute deal breakers that make buying impossible. The psychological shift is tremendously important as well. particularly for seniors who value stability and predictability in their financial lives. Once you own your property, your monthly housing cost is largely fixed for the term of your mortgage deal, whether that is 2 years, 5 years, or longer. Renters face the constant uncertainty of annual increases that can sometimes be very substantial indeed. Knowing exactly what your housing will cost for the next several years creates a foundation of financial stability that is simply impossible to achieve when renting in the current market. Market predictions from respected analysts for the coming years suggest modest, sensible growth rather than explosive, unsustainable increases. That is actually perfect for first-time buyers and for seniors helping family members get started. Stable, predictable growth means you are not taking an enormous gamble with your money. You are getting onto the ladder at a point where the market has genuinely found its footing after years of turbulence. Industry forecasts are calling for price growth in the range of 2 to 4% annually over the next few years. That represents healthy appreciation without dangerous volatility. Your property gains value steadily, but not so quickly that it creates another unsustainable bubble that will inevitably burst. The broader economic backdrop across Britain is also stabilising in encouraging ways. Inflation has come down dramatically from its painful peaks that caused so much hardship. Wage growth remains strong, and for many sectors it is now outpacing inflation, meaning real incomes are genuinely rising for the first time in years. Employment remains robust despite the economic uncertainty that fills the news headlines. Consumer confidence is cautiously improving month by month. These are not boom conditions by any means, but they represent solid, sensible foundations for making a major purchase like a property. The fear factor that absolutely dominated 2023 has largely dissipated now. People are no longer expecting an imminent crash. The consensus among experts has shifted toward cautious optimism. That change in sentiment genuinely matters because it affects how both buyers and sellers behave in the market. Sellers price their properties realistically. Buyers make offers confidently. Transactions actually complete successfully rather than falling through at the last moment. A functioning, balanced market is exactly what you need as a first-time buyer or as someone helping family get started. Drama and volatility help absolutely no one except speculators and newspaper headline writers looking for attention-grabbing stories. Regional variations across Britain create opportunities that national statistics completely miss and fail to capture. While London and the South East remain extremely expensive, other areas of the country are offering genuine value that might surprise you. Northern cities, the Midlands, parts of Scotland and Wales all have strong employment markets, good infrastructure, and property prices that have not spiraled completely out of control like some southern areas. A first-time buyer budget that would not even get you a parking space in certain parts of London could purchase a lovely 3-bedroom house with a proper garden in Manchester, Leeds, Newcastle, or dozens of other thriving cities. Remote and flexible working arrangements have untethered many jobs from physical office locations. If your employer or your grandchild's employer allows flexible working arrangements, the property search area expands enormously and exciting new possibilities open up. You are no longer restricted to expensive commuter zones within easy reach of London. You can realistically look at areas with much better value, considerably more space, and a higher overall quality of life while potentially maintaining a London or southeast level salary through remote work. This geographic arbitrage is one of the most powerful tools that first-time buyers have available to them right now. Towns with good rail links but lower public profiles are seeing increased interest from savvy buyers. Places that were previously overlooked and undervalued are being reassessed and discovered. Regeneration programs in former industrial cities are creating vibrant new communities with modern housing at prices that seem almost impossible to people accustomed to southern costs. So here is where we actually stand when you look at the complete picture rather than just the scary headlines. Yes, absolute house prices are sitting at record levels. That is the headline everyone sees constantly, and it is technically true as far as it goes. But the powerful combination of lower interest rates, increased lending multiples, lower deposit requirements, generous government support schemes, competitive and realistic pricing, and stronger negotiating positions for buyers means that first-time buyers have genuine advantages right now that simply have not existed since before 2015. The cost of borrowing matters more than the headline price of property in many practical ways. A more expensive house with a cheap mortgage can actually be more affordable month to month than a cheaper house with an expensive mortgage. Right now, we find ourselves in a genuine sweet spot where rates are low, lending is readily available, and seller expectations have become realistic and grounded. That particular combination is genuinely rare in the property market, and it absolutely will not last forever. When the market picks up momentum again, and it inevitably will at some point, the urgency returns, the competition intensifies dramatically, and the window of opportunity narrows quickly. The window is open right now. The people who recognize this opportunity and act decisively, while others remain focused on scary record price headlines, are the ones who will look back in 5 years and realize they timed their purchase perfectly. Not because they predicted some dramatic crash that would let them buy property for pennies, but because they understood that true affordability is about far more than just the price tag on a property. It is about the complete package of financing terms, lending conditions, and overall market dynamics. On that comprehensive measure, this genuinely represents the best chance first-time buyers have had in over a decade. The question is not whether the opportunity exists, because it clearly does for those with eyes to see it. The question is whether you will recognize it and take action while the conditions remain favorable. Before you go, I want to remind you that if you found this information helpful and want to stay informed about the UK property market in a way that actually makes sense for your situation, please do subscribe to this channel right now. Just click that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss our updates. We are building a community of informed seniors and their families who refuse to be left behind by confusing financial news. Your subscription costs nothing but means everything to us, and together we can navigate these challenging times with knowledge and confidence. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.